Hello out there. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Stephen Nickel. I'm the Mattoon Southwest Area Forester with the Alaska Division of Forestry and Fire Protection. I want to give you a little history of the Susitna Forestry Guidelines and why we are updating them with the Susitna Valley Forest Management Plan and how you can be part of the process. The Susitna Forestry Guidelines direct the management of forest resources, set the standards for timber management and access, and identify areas for timber harvest. The intent is to ensure forests continue to support the economy and the high quality of life in the valley. The goals are to protect water quality and wildlife habitat and ensure lands are managed for multiple uses. The guidelines apply only to state-managed lands where forestry is one of the designated uses. They do not apply to private, borough, mental health, university, or legislatively designated areas. Think of this as a tier below the area plans and applicable only to forest operations on forest classified lands. The Susitna Forestry Guidelines were originally developed and adopted back in 1991 to guide sustainable forest management of state forest lands in the Susitna Valley. They were developed through an inclusive, collaborative, interagency approach with extensive input from other agencies and the public to balance the many demands on the Susitna Valley forest lands. The original plan was intended to be viable for 10 years or until a management plan was adopted to supersede the Susitna Forestry Guidelines. In 2009, the Division of Forestry and Fire Protection engaged in a revision process of the guidelines. The Citizens Advisory Committee and an interagency planning team were established, and several meetings were held between 2009 and 2013. The Department of Natural Resources and the Matanuska-Susitna Borough hosted a series of open houses to obtain public input on the use and management of state and borough lands in the Susitna and Matanuska valleys. The process was never completed, and the 1991 Susitna Forestry Guidelines remain the guiding document for state timber sales. Fast forward to today, much has changed in the valley over the years, but we still want to maintain that inclusive process from previous efforts. We want to continue to balance the variety of demands on the forest and want to make sure that the guiding documents reflect current conditions and demands while anticipating future dynamics in the valley. Broadly, the number of operators in the Mat-Su have changed over the years, and those that remain active have diversified and made investments to mechanize their operations. These investments make operations more efficient. However, the flip side is that these guidelines do not reflect the industry now and make it economically challenging for operators. Additionally, the easier to recover timber has been cut, and therefore available timber is further from established roads infrastructure. While road building is factored into timber sales and backed out of the stumpage, the low value of timber makes it challenging to offer viable timber sales while following the Susitna Forestry Guidelines mandated timber sale size. So why the new plan? The Susitna Forestry Guidelines were written over 30 years ago and should be updated to reflect today's forest conditions, science, and community needs. They were originally meant to last 10 years or until a forest management plan was developed to supersede the forestry guidelines, yet they are still in use today. Spruce beetle outbreaks have killed large areas of white spruce, and the remaining timber is farther from road systems. At the same time, logging operations have modernized, and the old guidelines restrict practices that would make harvesting viable and sustainable under these new realities. Updating the plan will remove redundancies, streamline rules, and allow management decisions to be made through site-specific and public and agency-reviewed forest land use plans. The revision will ensure management continues to meet Alaska's constitutional needs and Alaska's constitutional requirement for multiple use and sustained yield, balancing timber harvest, wildlife habitat, recreation, and cultural values so that today's use does not compromise future generations. This is your forest. The revision process is designed to incorporate local knowledge, uses, concerns, and ideas from you. Digging a little deeper, some of the specifics we want to explore, as previously mentioned, the harvest unit size presents economic challenges for our loggers. We want to take a hard look at this, and we want to consider removing these harvest unit size limits or increasing them considerably. The prescriptive language in the Susitna Forestry Guidelines tends to be limiting, especially involving silviculture prescriptions. The silviculture prescription is discussed in the Forest Land Use Plan documents, which are site-specific and go through agency and public review. The water body and wetland setback language in Susitna Forestry Guidelines is redundant. These setbacks are covered under the Forest Resources and Practices Act. The phasing restrictions and contingencies for developed access hinder where we can manage the forest. These were due for review and update at the Susitna Forestry Guidelines revision or replacement. We want to make sure that we have the flexibility to meet current and future demands. We want to evaluate the road buffers on the Willard Cache Road, and we want to incorporate updated inventory information and annual allowable cut information. The Susitna Valley has long been a working forest. Commercial activity ebbs and flows with industry and demand, and personal use timber and firewood remains highly popular. The years of past forest management activities have created many of the roads and access points frequently used for today for recreation, hunting, and foraging. Active forest management will continue to provide for and enhance these opportunities. What will change in the new plan? For you, not a whole lot. You will still be able to use the forest in the places you have been, the way you have been historically. This will not lock up or change access. In short, how you use the land now will not change. For us, the new plan gives us an updated framework for forest management that's built on local input. Revising gives us the best tools to manage the forest into the future given current conditions of the forest and the timber industry. It allows us to continue managing to produce forest products while maintaining public benefits and ecological functions. The Forest Resources and Practices Act still applies. So what is a working forest? It is a strategically and actively manipulating forest composition and structure to meet specific objectives. This means sustainable timber production and long-term forest stewardship that incorporates multiple use management objectives, providing direct and indirect contributions to the local and regional economy and providing a way of life for many. So an example of some of the objectives would be, balancing current use with long-term forest health and productivity. So improving forest health, supporting or enhancing recreation or increased access, maintaining or enhancing wildlife habitat, or soil and water and air quality. Some examples of how we manipulate the forest are through harvesting and reforestation, through fuels reduction or mitigation to protect values at risk such as communities or critical infrastructure, maintaining forest road infrastructure, which means improved and potentially greater access for recreation, or protecting riparian areas and maintaining forest cover for habitat and to prevent erosion. So in a nutshell, providing wood for personal and commercial use while protecting fish and wildlife habitat, providing the public with recreation and other multiple uses of state lands, and maintaining public lands and benefits for clean air, land, and water. So you've heard our reasons and focal points, but this is your forest. You live, work, and play in and around it, and you know it well. You are intimately familiar with it and have lots of valuable information that we may not know. You are the best advocates for your relationships to the forest and know how you use the land and the concerns that you have. So we want to hear from you, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We inherited the forest from previous managers, and someday we will hand over the responsibility to a new generation. We all happen to be lucky enough to be the stewards of this forest for the time we are here. We want your help to develop a comprehensive plan that incorporates local knowledge, meets our multiple uses, sustained yield mandate, and support enhanced recreation opportunities, and habitat values. That incorporates the latest science and technology, meets the current and anticipated industry needs, and retains the flexibility to adapt and evolve as science and technology changes. We want to ensure that the current needs are met, but also ensure that future caretakers are provided with a management framework that is well thought out, based on public, industry, and various user groups and agency input. And that's where you come in. This QR code will take you to the Susitna Forest Management Plan website, where you can find more info and links to some surveys that we will use to collect your comments and feedback. There are two surveys. There's one on forest projects, such as timber sales, and the other is for recreation and subsistence, so how you use the forest. The survey features an interactive map to put pins and information that you want us to know about and address. So like how you use the forest, trails, hunting stands, foraging, recreation, things that you noticed. There is also contact information on the website as well, and we can take input and questions that way as well. So thanks for your time and attention. We hope to hear from you.